Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to this Textile Talk podcast. I'm Gail Cowley and I'll be your host today. Joining me for this episode is textile artist Kandy G Lopez. Just to give you a little bit of background before we start our chat, Kandy was born in 1987 in New Jersey, USA, and is a multidisciplinary artist exploring cultural identity, representation and power through fibre art, portraiture, painting and mixed media. Born to Dominican parents, she draws from her experience navigating multiple cultural landscapes. She holds a BFA in painting and a BS in marketing and management from the University of South Florida, and her MFA in painting from Florida Atlantic University in 2014. Her background in both fine arts and business informs her meticulous material investigations and strategic engagement with art institutions. She's currently an associate professor in the Department of Communication, Media and Arts at Nova Southeastern University, where she integrates critical theory with hands-on material practice. Before we dive into the conversation, a quick thank you to the School of Stitched Textiles for supporting this podcast. They are the UK's leading provider of City and Guilds accredited home study courses in textiles. From beginners through to advanced Master Practitioner programs, you can study flexibly from home with expert tutor support. Visit sofst.org to find out more. So Kandy, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast episode. I really appreciate you making the time to spend with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to get to talk about the work and talk about all of the things. So I'm really excited to be part of this too.
Wonderful. So I wonder if I could just start off by asking you to tell us a bit about, your journey, how you got into art and textiles, what your journey was into it, and just a little bit about what really fascinates you about it.
Okay, well, just like, every adolescent, I would assume I didn't really pick this. I think that it just like fell on my lap because it was the only other choice that I had. So I grew up I was born in Jersey and I grew up in Miami, Florida. My parents divorced when I was young. So my mom was a single mom, except from like us traveling to go see my father every summer in New Jersey. And I came here, made friends. One of my best friends wanted to, pursue dance for elementary school here, which is like 5th grade. And I decided to join her because she's my best friend.
It's a
Like,
reasonable thing to do, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. So I was like, okay, I'll do dance. It's part of our culture anyway. So my parents are from Dominican Republic and she was Dominican and also Puerto Rican. So we kind of have like that cultural bond that happens. And then ballet was introduced and I am not a flexible person. I really enjoy dance, but I couldn't see myself doing that for much longer. So she wanted to continue on doing that for middle school, which is 6th grade. And I was like, I want to go with my best friend, but I just don't know if I can do dance or what else, what other kinds of arts do they have at the school? So they had visual arts, they had theater and dance and music. And none of the other things like really attracted me. I felt like drawing would be like an easy thing to do. And I knew I wasn't good at it. I mean, I drew Pokemon, but it wasn't anything spectacular. Like I was still doing, stick figures.
Mm.
And we had audition, so I auditioned and I got in. And 6th grade was really difficult. 7th grade, felt like I got better technically. And by 8th grade, I was like, I kind of really enjoy being in a classroom with these other kids that we have art in common. So it's like building a bond. And then after that, our teachers like really pushed us inner city kids to get into the best high school so that we would get into the best college in the arts in the United States. So we applied to 4 different top art schools in South Florida. I got into all of them. I picked the best one. made new friends, and continued the art space that way until the market crashed in 2007. My mom lost her job. I decided that I was going to pursue business because, like, a lot of young people and those that are around you are telling you, how are you going to make money in the arts? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So I did business for a year and I was very miserable. But I was still like painting and drawing, like on campus, I'm like outside painting architecture. I'm like finding images of people that I want to make. And then eventually somebody saw me painting. They're like, "Oh, you're part of the art program," which I didn't know that there was one at that university. So I ended up double majoring because I knew that if I wouldn't be able to succeed in my mind as a painter, then at least I would be in the arts realm. So like an arts educator or a curator or a teacher, somewhere within the arts because it's the
Yeah.
only thing that I loved and didn't bore me.
Mhm.
So, during my undergraduate, I understood what it meant to be a professor. It's like, "Oh, I get summers off. I have a studio space. Like, I can travel." And I could be in the classroom and teach and learn at the same time. I was really attracted to that. So, I knew I wanted to teach at a university setting, and I pursued my master's in painting. And then I play a lot with different materials. So once I figure something out, I need the uncomfortableness of creating something new, which is what brought me to fiber. That was a long story.
It's really interesting. I was looking on your website and there was a quote on there, I think, from you. And it says, if she's not learning from her materials and how it affects the message, it's not worth creating. I thought that
100%.
was, I thought it was a really interesting thing to say and so true.
Yeah, I constantly am getting bored with something that I feel not that I've mastered, but I feel like I understand it. And once I understand it, like I don't like to like repeat the thing that I know how to make because I feel like then that becomes a job instead of it becoming something that you can learn from. Like I'm constantly in the pursuit of learning something. And I think art is such a beautiful way of doing that because at the same time of you learning, you're also creating. And
Ah,
some people love that stuff,
absolutely.
which is also a plus.
Absolutely. Especially if they buy it from you.
Right, right? They're like my little experiments, and people are buying my little experiments, which is awesome.
It's a great way to look at it though, isn't it? Because as you say, I think a lot of times when I speak to people, they're running a business, and there obviously there's a financial imperative there
Yeah,
as well, and it's really, really easy to get into a rut, I think, where, obviously you're having to eat, you're having to pay rent, so
right.
money is important, but it's not the only thing, is it?
Yeah, but I'm also, like, very blessed and privileged in that route too because I decided to become a professor, there's that kind of stability and that income.
Mhm.
So I ha that's k it's not my backup plan because I love teaching as much as I love making because I'm also learning, and I feel like I'm helping the students figure themselves out because that's one of the things, like, I wouldn't be where I am without my teachers, and
Yeah.
I kinda wanna be that for, the students, the kids, even though they're not kids, they're young adults, but for me, they're, my little kids.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh
I mean, that must be fantastic for them to have a professor that has that sort of approach for them. Did you have somebody, one professor in particular that did that for you?
I feel like my middle school teachers were very impactful when I was because they're the ones that taught me, like, the technical part of things. So, like, I tell my students all the time, like, I wasn't born one of the Ninja Turtles, right? I'm not Raphael, I'm not Leonardo, like, I'm not these people. I wasn't born to do it, I was taught how to create technically. I feel like I was born with a curiosity in me to want to explore different things, and also like learning about egos and not letting the ego get in the way of you making failure work, which is a way of learning too.
Oh, absolutely. We all learn from, I think we learn more, don't we, from what doesn't work than what does.
100%. Like I love giving my students problems and they have to like figure it out. Like you have to figure it out. You don't need me to figure it out. Work it in your brain, do some research. And then you let me know how you can make that color.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I'm always telling my students as well, that actually, although I might have an idea how their work will turn
Right.
out, the only way that they're actually going to know that, or either of us are going to know that for certain, is if they go ahead and actually try. They need to experiment, they need to make it, they need to work on it, and they need to adjust as they go along.
Yeah, and they're fearful of that too because they think that they're making like a huge mistake. I'm like, there's no such thing. Like you're learning from what you're creating and making. Even in life, I'm like, okay, so something happened. It was terrible. Okay, and what are you gonna do? Just like go into a ball of darkness? Like, let's figure out how to get out of this thing. Like, there's always steps to get out of certain things. So, I feel like
Absolutely.
art is like psychology. Yeah, it's like a psych class.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think if you ever lose that enthusiasm for doing something new, something different, working with different materials, then it's going to be a much poorer world, isn't it, for all of us?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that my teachers, my middle school teachers, like really push because the school was in an inner city neighborhood, which means that there was lack of funding and resources. So they had to get really creative to get us to make like really high quality work,
Mhm.
which means that we had to share. We had to experiment with different kinds of materials. We had to learn the different materials, specifically like color choices, because, we had to share oil pastels and you needed to learn the difference between cobalt blue and cerulean blue. Like to talk to your friends to pass you the right color. It's not just like, I need blue. What kind of blue do you need? So there was a lot of experimentation with different mediums on top of mediums in middle school too. So it was like technical in a explorative way, which I know that for them, they would have wanted to have more resources, but I feel like the kids that came out of that space that continued in the arts have really stuck with this idea of exploration of different materials because of them. And
Yeah.
I'm really happy because they're still here, on this earth, and I'm constantly like singing their praises.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, you've had quite a journey, really, haven't you? I mean, you've got degrees in painting and also marketing and management.
Yes.
How do you think that your business background sort of informs your approach to the art world?
I tell this to my students to at least take one business class. I think it's important. And if you're gonna take one, take speech. Because a lot of visual people are introverts. They wanna like be in their space and they just wanna make. And they kind of get awkward when it comes to speaking or like presenting.
Yeah.
So I think like immersive therapy is really important, like just getting in it and, learning how to talk about your work, learning how to present yourself in front of people. That was another thing too, is like we had to wear suits when we were doing presentations. So like buying the right outfit and looking a certain way is also important, especially in this field and a lot of fields, to be honest. Just
Mm.
like just being. So, and not only like the presentation of self, but also like knowing and learning how to develop a website and the website matching your CV or your resume and your resume matching your business card if you have one of those. And then your Instagram and all your social medias, like that should be different from your personal life. It's a brand that you're trying to put out there and get people to see. And we're visual people. Like, I get a lot of things through Instagram and through Facebook because people are looking at the images, and the presentation of what that looks like is really important. And I wouldn't have understood that, I think, if I wouldn't have gotten my degree in business, because it was all about that, especially in marketing.
Absolutely, because you have to find a way of sharing your work effectively with others, don't you? Particularly, I imagine, with galleries and places that you can market your work through.
Yeah, and sometimes, well, I would say a lot of times artists get like cringy about doing that stuff, but I feel like that stuff is so important if you have a goal in mind. You know, you can't hide from that, because you want people to see the work, and for people to see the work, you got to show you got to show the work.
Yeah.
They're not
Yeah,
just
you
going to
do.
like find you on a website if they don't know your name. You also
Mhm.
have to show your work in spaces.
So what would you prefer to be doing? Would you prefer to be sort of working on the business side of things, or
Oh
would
no,
you prefer to be in the studio
studio.
creating?
100%. I'd rather be in the studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you go about splitting your time? Do you have to sort of force yourself to spend a certain amount of time on promotion?
Yeah. Like, social media is easier because if I'm in the studio, I just like take pictures, or I go live for a few minutes, or I make a little video of what it is that I'm doing. It only takes a few seconds and you post.
Mhm.
I feel like a lot of people overthink their posts too. It's just like, just take a picture, a few pictures, put it up. If the wording is wrong, you go back and you edit the wording. Like, it's okay. People aren't like focused on that anyway. They're just looking at the images. So that part of it is easier. I think when it comes to like updating the website and updating the CV and sending images and sending things to different people, that takes a longer period. So I try to give myself space within the day after the kids are asleep, or like I'm not teaching this year because I'm on sabbatical. So like the mornings are really nice to get things done, but not every day, because that'll drive me crazy.
So you would think that perfectionism in that respect is a bit of an enemy, isn't it? Because as you say, if you're going to sweat too much about what you're putting onto social media, you're probably just never going to actually post.
Yeah, and there's a lot of artists that don't, and their work is amazing. And every
Mm.
time I like, if I go to a residency or if I meet someone, I'm like, "Oh, what's your Instagram?" Because I wanna follow people and see the people that they follow. That's important too, so networking in that regard. But they don't. They like, some of them don't have a presence. I'm like, "Why? Why?"
Mm. What do you think the reason is? I mean, do you have a feeling from them as to what is it just shyness?
I think it might be like overthinking and anxiety. I think a lot of political and social issues that are happening in this country too.
Mhm.
Um, trying to be a better human being by not being on these platforms that are taking information from us is like a really big thing in the arts community, because we're so
Mhm.
aware of those things.
Could you explain that to our listeners a little bit?
All of the platforms and your cell phones and the data that come from that are being collected. Collected for what? There's a lot of different theories. There's also a lot of different conspiracy theories too.
Mm,
But there's people that don't want their mind being capitalized. So they would rather not. Like, I know of a person who doesn't have like a smartphone. She's still using like the old school flip phone from like, I don't know, the 2000s, because she
yeah.
refuses to give permission to these phone companies and these apps that we're constantly just agreeing to. We're just clicking the button, I accept, and you're just like giving all of your stuff away for people to learn how your brain works to make money off of it.
There's a lot of, well, I suppose, negative publicity about AI at the moment, isn't there? And
Yes.
how that might use images.
Right, they have all the data, so they have your voice, they have videos. I mean, you're constantly being tracked, so there's that part of it too.
I know that you're very much known for your fibre portraits,
Yes.
and just the really vibrant depiction that you give of people that you describe as marginalised. I just wondered what draws you to the medium and how you select your subjects.
I've always been a portrait painter. I still feel like I am that. I'm just painting with yarn
Hmm.
or fiber because they look like paintings. So that's what I know. I know how to create depth with color and tones and texture and space. A lot of the things that I'm creating now just happen as experiments. So I was painting for a while, and then I started printmaking because it's like another form of painting on plexiglass. And then I'm really interested in like this idea of transparency and layers of people and glass and see-through material like mirrored film, which is what you use for car tints for when it gets too hot, or like
Mhm.
for the windows in your home if you don't want people to look inside where you can still look outside. Like I love that idea of like being there and not being there, and also having like different layers because I it's also connected to painting too and glazing.
Mm.
So I started printmaking, and then I got bored of that and I started cutting up my prints and making collages. And then a piece of thread fell on one of my collages, like a shirt that I was wearing. And then that started to get incorporated in my collaging. And then I needed to buy more thread. So I ended up going to an art supply store, and there was a little canvas next to the thread. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I know this material. What would it look like if a little person's made out of thread? Because there's so much history in like fiber and also women's work and craft and history
Yeah, yeah.
in it, which I wasn't thinking about those things at the time. I was just like, "Oh, this thread is an interesting addition to my 2D stuff."
Mhm.
Um, and then Black Lives Matter happened in this country and throughout the world, and I wanted to make a political and social statement at that point, and I remembered using thread for the smaller pieces, and I wanted to make something that's bigger because my works are usually big.
Yes,
So
your works are huge, aren't they?
yeah,
Are they are they actually larger than real life? I think they
they
might be
are.
from what
They're
I can see. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, the biggest one is 14 feet as of now.
Wow. Oh my
Um,
goodness.
but they're usually like 8 foot tall, which I really
Mm,
enjoy this idea of like the person towering over the viewer
mm.
and looking directly at the viewer is something that I am really adamant about. I don't want my figures to seem passive in any way, but I also am open to them feeling vulnerable at the same time as a human. So I'm really inspired by people that are around me or that have swagger. So, like, a lot of people I'm depicting are family members or friends of friends. Or sometimes I stop people on the street just because they have like this magic while they're walking. Like I really love body language and this idea of just like being the baddest person that you can be, as in, the most stylish. So it becomes like an awkward situation, but I'm also like, how else am I gonna get to know this person if I don't introduce myself? So it's kind of like, you know.
So I'd love to hear how that encounter goes. Do you run after them down the street and say, "I really, really want to paint you," or how does that work?
Yeah, I get butterflies. So like I'm usually walking with someone, walking the street, having a conversation, or even in an art space, like they end up coming to a show or something, and they just like take my full attention. Where like now I'm getting butterflies because they look super interesting, and it's not like a sexual attraction. It's just like an attraction of energy.
Mhm.
So I see them and I'm usually with someone, and the person that I'm with usually is my husband. So my husband will end up like looking at me and I'm looking at them because they know the look in my face. And he'll be like, "Oh, you have to approach him like," and I'm like, "I know." So then I'm like going through this whole thing in my head, and this is like a few seconds.
Mm.
My head is like working at 100 degrees. And then I finally get the balls and I approach the person. My Instagram is already like on my phone so that there's like some kind of reference and I don't feel like I'm this weird stalker person. Uh, and then I approach them, I introduce myself, I let them know that I'm an artist and that they're really interesting and I would really love to immortalize them in one of my works. And if they're interested, they don't have to give me their phone number. They want to give me their email. It's great. I pay them for the image. We set up a studio date. Sometimes it's just like, I would like to take a picture of you right now as you are, and
Mm.
I'll pay you. And they usually say yes, which is nice.
Well, if the stranger on the street comes up and offers you money.
Right. And I'm also small, like I'm 5 feet. So I don't feel like intimidating, which is really nice.
Hmm.
Um, so that my size helps too.
Yeah, I'm sure. So you ever had anyone refuse?
Yes, I've had people say no
Mm.
or like give me their contact information and I don't hear from them.
Mm. Do you sometimes find that from actually seeing them that in a way that you've obviously seen them naturally, they're not aware that they're being looked at or
Oh,
or
yeah.
considered for a then when they come along maybe to a photography session, do they alter? Have they spruced themselves up? Do they take on a completely different,
It
vibe?
depends. Like some of them, they're like really shy. Like when apart from like when I first see them, they have like, this confidence. So that's what attracts me to them.
Mm,
But then like sometimes when I take them to the studio, they're like a little weary. And it doesn't have to be my studio. I tell them this all the time. I'm like, it could be your space. We could meet like in a park. Like it doesn't have to. I just want you to feel comfortable.
mhm,
But I know that that's a lot to ask from someone that you barely know. But we're also getting to know each other because I keep in contact with all my models anyway. But yeah, they get shy. So I have to like put on some music and talk to them, ask them about their life because their life is also important when it comes to my work because people are asking me about the person that I'm depicting and I want to give as much information as possible.
mhm.
So, yeah, and sometimes it takes, 20 minutes and sometimes I get an image in like 2 minutes. So like it depends on the person too.
Mm. And I know you were saying that you sort of often pick them out, partially because of what they're wearing, because 'cause they're really, owning what they've got on and they look great in it, and so do you find that, sometimes they'll turn up in something that doesn't look quite as good as when you saw them or
Yeah. Yeah, that happens too, but I just go with it.
Mhm,
There's reasons why they chose the outfit that they chose and they feel the best in that outfit, so I don't want to alter their swagginess by me telling them, "Hey, that other outfit you had on was much better."
no, I could imagine that might be a bit of a downer for them.
Yeah. And then they're questioning every single pose. No.
Mm. You say that you keep in touch with them. Do you sort of let them see the finished pieces?
Oh, I'm constantly tagging them and, like, sending them images and videos on my phone, and I always warn them, I'm like, "Look, if it's too much, just let me know. You're not gonna hurt my feelings." I tag it so that when people see the person that I'm depicting, they can also follow the person, so it's kinda like this networking situation or, like, community building is that's a better term. A
Mm,
community building thing because I just don't want it to end with a picture. I make a piece, I sell a piece, and that's it, you know? Like, I want there to be more of a, I don't know, a space where it feels like family.
yeah, yeah, I can completely understand that. The portraits themselves are just amazing. I mean, it's wonderful to see that the level of detail is just incredible, the way that you're able to capture people's expressions and personality.
Thank
Um,
you.
oh, they're absolutely amazing. How how do you go about actually starting to create? I mean, obviously, we know probably that they're going to be quite large as a starting point. So how do you actually get the actual design onto the canvas, and how do you approach starting to stitch? Do you start with a particular part first? I'm just really fascinated to know how the process works.
Well, usually after the image, so when I take the image, I'm usually on the floor or at a lower level. I think a lot about our history and the poses of our history and hierarchy within those images and passivity. So there's a lot of choices that I make when I'm taking the image and I'm thinking about the end result of the work.
Hmm.
Because perspective is really important. So once I have an image, I usually have like 3 or 4 that I'm debating on which one I'm gonna choose, and I print those out, and I'm looking, and I finally pick one that feels the strongest to me. It's, like, intuitive, though, like, that part is really intuitive, and I know that I wanted to make it 8 feet, or if I'm doing more than one person, sometimes the 8 feet grows into 14. Um, because I need more space, obviously. So I cut the hook rug mesh, which is what it's called. It's like the backing of a rug is what I'm using. It has like bigger holes. And it's easier to pull all kinds of different thicknesses of yarn through it. Once I cut it out, then I hang it on the wall. I pin it on the wall, and then I give myself like 10 minutes to do a quick gesture of the person. And once I have the gesture and somewhat the proportions, which they always change anyways, I roll it up and then I keep it pinned to the wall rolled up only on the head. Once that's pinned up, my image is also up next to next to the hook rug mesh. I pick out my colors for the eyes and the face. And I usually have like 10 blunt needles with different colors like hanging from the hook rug mesh. And I start with black. That's usually the first color that I use, and it usually starts with the eyeball. Like, it's always eyes first. Once I've figured out the eyes, then I feel like I understand the rest of the face because I need it to look like that person's eye, and every eye is different. And I try to make it look as individual as possible with just yarn.
Which is just amazing, because there's so much detail, so much contouring that you do just by using thread. What sort of thread is it that you use? Because it looks to me like a rug yarn. Is that?
Yeah, it's a rug yarn, but there's a variety of them. So some of them are synthetic, some are acrylic. Sometimes I use wool, but that it's really rare. I oh, and sometimes it's cotton. Sometimes it's polyester. So there's like a mix of different yarns that I use.
Do you ever find difficulty in purchasing the color you want, and you end up having
Oh
to
my
dye
God.
something?
When I first started off doing these, so the first one that I did in color was in 2021. And there was only like 4 browns. I was losing my mind. I'm like, there's so many different tones in browns, you know? And I've said this before, but I like repeating it because there's blue brown and red brown and yellow brown and purple brown and green brown. Like, and then within that, there's different tone. There's different value ranges with that. So it got really annoying in the
Mm,
beginning. And you, as a viewer, if you're like really looking at the work, you can tell w- what were my earlier pieces versus my later pieces because now there's like so much variety in brown. Not what I would want, and I've thought about dyeing and going to like dyeing classes as well, which I have done a few to make my own color palette because it's so much easier with paint. Like, if there's a color
mm.
that I need, I know exactly what I need to add into it to make that color. But, like, when it comes to yarn, like, this is my color palette, whatever it is that I have, or whatever it is that the store has, or the Salvation Army, or, what I have.
Mhm.
So that becomes a little tricky, which I think is the challenge that I might like if I'm being honest with myself, because it's trying to depict a three-dimensional person with limitations.
Yeah.
And limitations are not always bad.
Sometimes we can have so much choice that it almost stops us progressing, can't we?
Oh my god, yes, I just took a glass class at Corning, the Corning Museum of Art.
Mm.
I did a 2-week residency there, and there was so many different things that you can do with just glass, and there was so many resources there too that
Mhm.
I was, like, so overwhelmed, and the teacher's like, "Candy, do you know what you wanna make?" And I'm like, "No, I have too many choices.
Yeah.
I need less choices." And he was just, like, looking at me like, "What is going on?" But I'm just like, "That Gail, what you just said is exactly how I felt in that
Mm.
moment, where it becomes really difficult to just make a choice."
Yeah, it can be overwhelming, can't it?
Yeah.
Mm. One of the things that I was really interested to see is the way that you display your pieces because I don't know, we get so used to sort of seeing the back of embroidered pieces being completely covered, when they're framed or whatever, but you leave
Yeah.
yours open, don't you? And I really love that. Do you have a particular reason why you do that?
I remember the first one that I made, and I was really intrigued with the backing, especially of the face, because it looked more like a violent form of the front.
Mm.
So I feel like my political and social messaging comes out not only in the front. Aesthetically, it's prettier in the front, obviously, but the back has a deeper viewpoint, and it also talks about layering and labor and the work that goes into creating this person. There's a lot
Mhm.
of, like, metaphorical things that I enjoy about using fiber that I can't get with any other material.
It's very tactile as well, isn't it? There's that feeling of even though the piece itself isn't it is three-dimensional, but not strongly three-dimensional, but there
Right.
is a really tactile quality about that just brings something different to the pieces.
Yeah, and then I, like, question all the time is, how is this stuff made? Like, how is this yarn made? Who has put their hands to create this yarn that I'm using for the work? And sometimes, like, I get gifted yarn from people off Instagram, or, like, other artists that I know that, like, "Oh, I was trying to make a hat, but it didn't work, so I have all this yarn. Do you want it?" And it's just
Mm.
like there's a history of what happens from the conception of it to, like, and my piece might not be the end result of it. And you never know. Like, maybe it'll get cut up, or I don't know. But I'm just like,
I sincerely doubt that, to be honest. I don't think anyone's gonna take scissors to your pieces. They're so beautiful.
you never know. You never know. So I'm just like, I like that there's a history in that too, versus like paint, where, yes, it comes from the earth, and then you add oil and whatever other solution to create it, and then you put it on the canvas. Like, I feel like with fiber, there's so much more work in it.
Mm.
There's a lot of things that goes on with just being a person.
Absolutely. Does where the yarn come from bother you? Do you look for something that's, kind to the environment, that's been, ecologically soundly dyed? That makes sense.
Not at the moment, but I have that in the back of my head.
I know that you mentioned that your work's created out of a necessity to learn something new about people, about culture. Can you just share an instance maybe where a particular piece led to a revelation for you?
Like, technically, or
In whichever way you'd like, if there was something about one of those pieces that really led you to sort of pause and think, "Hey, this is a bit different."
let me see, because there's been so many different things. There's a lot of, like, happy accidents that turn into, oh, I kind of like that. Let me try that for the next piece.
Mhm.
So like shifting from black and white to color was something that was groundbreaking, I think, for me, because in grad school, we got questioned so much about why we're using a certain color and what colors mean and all the crap. And my paintings were so colorful. Like, it's super vibrant in Florida, especially South Florida. And my parents, again, are from the Caribbean. The houses are super colorful and there's pattern everywhere. So, like, being questioned about why I'm using a certain blue or certain red, like, it didn't make sense for me as a person of color living in South Florida. I felt like those questions might have been used for someone else, but not for me,
Mhm.
because it's a part of my culture and my identity, and there wasn't a connection between that and what I was making at the time. So when I
Yeah.
introduced color, so my works were monochromatic. When I introduced color into my work again, it was a fiber works. And when that happened, I was like, oh man, there's so many different things that I can make with this, because there's so
Mhm.
many different types of yarns and thicknesses, and some they integrate different colors within it, so you can make a whole like new outfit than what the person is wearing, which becomes fun for me because again, it's another challenge.
Mhm.
And then there was one piece that the foot didn't fit at the bottom, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm just gonna add another little piece at the bottom to see how that would look like." And it's like, "Oh, now the person's stepping out of the frame." Um,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I see that. Mm.
or like not finishing a person in totality because they're still growing. And I also am obsessed with line work, and I also think about like the fading of people of color and their stories.
I noticed that in a number of your pieces, you have left, as you say, areas that haven't been quite finished, and also threads that are obviously there, part still at work, so to speak.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think about drip paintings
mm,
all the time with the yarn just hanging. Like, I like that that now becomes a three-dimensional piece instead of keeping it 2D. And I'm still working through that. Like, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to say with those things. Like, there's one piece that has like the braid, and the braids are just like hanging off of the person that I'm depicting, who's actually a hair braider. So
mm,
like there's certain images that I use, and it doesn't happen like sometimes. Is it planned? No. There's things that just happen in the studio while I'm making that I'm like, that's an interesting idea. Let's see what that looks like.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. How long do they take you? I mean, is there an average time that you would expect to spend on a portrait?
30 to 40 hours for a single person is typical. And if it's two people, maybe 50. Maybe less than 50, because sometimes it's not like the full body. Sometimes like the body's behind another one, so I don't have to complete the whole thing.
That just seems so incredibly quick to me. I you must be a very, very fast worker, and you must be incredibly sure of the marks that you're making as well.
Yeah, I also skip holes. I think a lot of people, when they see the work, they think oh, how long does it take? A year? I'm like, nah, man, I don't have patience for work that takes longer than a month. Like, if I'm working on a piece for a month, I have lost my mind at that point. Like, I am so over it by that point, because I have so many other models and pieces that I want to work through, that if I stay with one piece for too long, I lose interest of the other ones that I want to create. So it's
Mm.
a constant like battle of like time for me, which I'm going to therapy for.
Is it working?
Yeah, because I am somewhat impatient, and people see the work and they're like, "Oh man, she must be so patient." And it's just like, I'm not. Like, I'm always finding a way to, like, how do I fill this in faster? Let me double loop this thing so now I have 4 threads instead of having 2. Or let me pick, like, a thicker yarn. 1, because I think it would look interesting, but 2, also because it'll fill it in faster.
Mm,
Um, and skipping holes is another thing too. Like, I'm not going hole by hole. I'm, like,
mhm,
threading, I don't know, 20 holes skip, which
mm.
is not the traditional way of doing it, but I don't know what the traditional way of doing it. It was just like, how interesting would it be to make an eye out of yarn, and can I do it? Oh, this eye looks okay. Let's see if the next eye is better. Oh, it's getting a little better. Let me see if the third eye, like, it's a constant need of getting better technically and conceptually within the work.
I mean, as far as the pieces are concerned, when they're finished, you must do you find that you sort of miss them, or are you just really
No.
eager to get on to the next one? Do you have
Yes.
a line of people, I suppose, because they are portraits, aren't they? People that you desperately want to get on to next
Yes.
and next and next.
I
But
have like 15 people that I ready to, like, move through, but I was also told and asked if I've ever taken a break creating, and I have not. In all the years that I've been making since I was 12, it's been consistently creating. Like, even when I was pregnant, which was extremely hard for me after my first kid, to, like, not make if I didn't make work in that week, and mind you, I'm, like, breastfeeding at this, so I breastfed for a year for both of my kids. And that time was very, very, very stressful for me as an artist because I needed to create. It's very obsessive.
yeah.
And I felt like the time that I had for myself was either you need to eat, or you need to take a bath, or you need to sleep. Like, there wasn't you need to create. But even within that, I was still sketching. I was still watercoloring. I was still cutting up my prints and trying to, like, make something out of it. So this month actually has been a little difficult because I was told to take a beat until school starts again in August. So I'm, like, counting down the days because now I'm getting itchy because I keep seeing more people that I want to create, and the list is getting longer, and that's giving me more anxiety.
So, is it always people that interest you, or
100%.
it's always people?
Yes.
What is it about them, do you think, that sort of focuses your attention so much?
I don't know. I think that they're like portraits of me in some way. Maybe it's like me trying to understand who I am and all the, like, identities that are inside of each person, especially, like, South Florida is so diverse. Like, there's so many mixes, and I'm interested in learning people's stories too, like, about their parents and how they got here. Were they born here? Do they have siblings? Like, what do they do as a living? And did they go to school for that? Like, it's it's an investigation of different people. I don't know. There's, like, so many stories. Like, I just like learning.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can completely understand that. I How then do you find that sits alongside you being an educator as well? Because obviously for that time that you're in class or you're teaching, you're not able to work on your own pieces.
Yeah.
I get the feeling you've thought about that before.
Well, yeah, yeah, there's a lot of that, especially this was the first time I was on sabbatical, and I took a year. Usually people take, like, half a semester, but I was like, half a semester isn't long enough for me. Like, I need to, like, really get away and really focus on just making my art practice my number one at the moment. So going back in a few weeks, I'm gonna have to, like, navigate that again. But when I'm teaching, I'm teaching. Like, I don't, like, sit. and just look at, like, I'm walking around the room, I'm giving pointers, they constantly have questions. I'm giving them artist names that they can look up so they can research to do the thing that they want to do. Like, there's a lot of physical and mental load that happens inside of the classroom, which also happens inside of the studio.
Mm.
And I always want to bring new things back to them that I learned. So if I'm taking any like professional development workshops, like that stuff is coming into the classroom, making a new class and like figuring out what works and what didn't work in that class while I'm teaching it. So there's always a problem to solve in the classroom. And that includes like, okay, Kandy, you need to say no to meetings because these certain days are studio days. So they need to be studio days. You cannot be on your computer. You cannot be answering text messages. You cannot be. So I like give myself boundaries with that, just like I do with teaching. If I'm in the classroom, like I'm not checking anything but my students, and I need to be yeah, I need to be that present in the studios, especially
Yeah.
during my studio time, especially as a mom.
How do you find that your children, are they of an age where they have started to become interested in art?
Oh, my daughter 100%. She
Yeah?
loves fashion. So her dad and that side of the family are really interested in presentation of self. Like it's just part of who they are, which is one of the reasons why obviously I was attracted to my husband. My dad is also that way too. So there's that. So she's really interested in like the fashion part of art. And like we have a little sewing machine for her to use and she's just turned 7. So it's like being there for her but also like letting her figure it out is has been a challenge because I don't want her to hurt herself, but I also want her to learn that if you do X, Y, and Z, you will.
Mm.
And my son is not interested in art whatsoever. He's just like drones and losing all the batteries in our house so that he can put it inside his remote control cars, and losing all the screws and the screwdrivers because he's like taking things apart and he's 5. So it's like he's more of like the engineering questioning how certain things are made. Like he's constantly asking me plumbing questions like, "Mom, how does the water go into the toilet and how does it flush and where does it go?" And like I'm just like, "Okay, let's figure this
I'm
out."
not sure I could answer that, to be honest.
Like constantly like looking at the walls and thinking about electricity and how the electricity goes into the light and how the light shines and how does it change. Like those are the kinds of questions that he's
Mm.
into as a little boy, which has been really fascinating for me as a mom because I'm also like curious. So it's like trying to answer the questions for him, but I'm also learning about these things too.
I think you might have a budding engineer there.
Yeah, we'll see.
He's got time yet, hasn't he?
You still got time, yeah.
So looking ahead, is there anything that you've got sort of coming up or any themes that you're particularly excited to explore in your work?
Themes in my work, that's exciting. I am thinking about glass a lot. I've done stained glass before, so it's been a few years of me working with glass. I just took that glass residency and I am experimenting in my studio with my frame. So I learned how to make molds this year. So that was fun. And my molds, I can pour anything into them. So there's
Mhm.
that. We have kilns in school. So there's a lot of experimenting that's happening or that will be happening because, again, I'm on this break.
Mm.
But my
So
brain is still turning.
yeah.
And then in regards to like the exhibition stuff, there's a year planned already. I'm represented by ACA Galleries in New York City and Chelsea, and they are always on the next thing. So there's international exhibitions and national exhibitions that are coming up this year and next year. So I'm excited for that because it's just like showing my experiments
Mm.
and people like gravitating towards that has been really fulfilling for me.
Yeah. If there was one thing that people who come to see your art and your exhibitions could take away from it, what would you want it to be?
Warmth. I
Mhm,
want them to feel like they're surrounded by a community of people that make them feel warm. When I was young, I didn't really go to museums or gallery spaces until I would say, did I go in middle school? I want to say middle school. And there was a lot of art history that we learned, but the art history was very European centered. And I didn't learn anything about other artworks from different cultures until undergrad, which is wild.
mhm.
So I never felt like I belonged in any of those spaces, especially with the white walls. um, so I want people all people to like feel warm in the space that my art is in. I want there to be a connection of some sort.
And I'm sure that your work will inspire lots of people to continue or to take up or just literally, immerse themselves in art.
I hope so.
Mm,
Inspiration's always important too. I get
certainly, yeah.
inspiration still by going to art galleries and museums. Like, I'm constantly looking at how things are put up on the wall, how it's lit, what colors,
Mm.
um, who is doing what, researching that person. I love all that stuff.
Do you hang your own work in general?
Not anymore, but when I'm given the opportunity to have a say so, I'm always up for it. Like I have a solo show at the Orlando Museum of Art in Florida, and when I was asked to be part of the show, the curator was like, "You can do anything you want. You can paint the walls, you can draw on the walls, you can make holes, you can." I was like, "This is wild." And she's
Wow,
like,
yeah.
"Do you wanna be part of install?" I'm like, "Yeah, I wanna be part of install." It was like, having the ability to create what it is that you want to make and the saying that you want to say in the space is very unique and such an amazing opportunity. So I'm
Mm,
always up for being there during install.
mm. I think one of the things that I particularly remember from COVID was the way that almost all attended exhibitions stopped, didn't they?
Yeah.
We just everything came to a halt.
Yep.
Everything if anything that was done went online. And I think o if you don't see art in
Person.
in the I was gonna say in the flesh, but that's a funny thing to say, but, actually, if you're not present there with it, it's not the same. You don't get the impression of scale, you miss out on a lot of the texture. It's just not the same. And
It's
yet
not the same.
no. And yet many of our exhibitions are unfortunately only available online still, aren't they?
Yeah, but there's still, like, museums and spaces and shows where you can, like, go and see the work, which is awesome. I tell people all the time, like, if you get a chance, you need to see it in person because, yeah, it looks nice on the phone,
Mm,
and you can kinda understand what it is, but you don't get it until you see it in person, and that's one of the things that I hear all the time is, like, "They're so different in person." I'm like,
mm.
"I know, that's why I told you to go see it in person."
I told you
You're
so.
in front of it is like there's no escape of, like, a room full of people looking at you. Like,
Mm,
wherever you turn, someone is looking at you, and they're also large, so they take over the space.
absolutely. I mean, something that's what did you say it was? 18 feet tall?
Yeah, 14 or 8 feet
14?
tall,
Yeah.
and they're, like, elevated.
Mm,
They're not I mean, they're bigger than you, but they're also, like, up. So it
yeah.
kind of feels like these holy figures that you're looking up at.
Mhm.
I
Well,
enjoy that part. I think about so I took a trip to Europe. Well, I took trips to Europe, but one of the ones that really impacted me was going to Italy. That was my first trip to Europe and like going into the churches and looking at how the paintings were mounted on the walls and them always being like higher than eye level. So you're literally like looking up at these saints and these biblical scenes inside of these churches, and it's just like it just feels like it wraps you.
Mm.
And I grew up Catholic, but I wouldn't say that I'm a religious person. I'm more of a spiritual person. But being in that space, you feel it, and the images and the lighting, um,
Mm.
and the bigness of it. You feel like an ant in that space.
Yeah, yeah. It's completely different, as you say, to just same thing, but viewing it on the phone, you just get no idea of scale.
No, it does nothing.
Mm. Mm. Candy, it has been an absolute pleasure. I can't believe where that hour has gone.
Me too,
It's gone
Kara.
really quickly. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode.
Thank you so much. This was fun.